You're listening to the RE Social Podcast with your hosts, Andrew and Vince from OnV Invest. For more information, go to onvinvest.com.
Hey, welcome to another episode of RE Social Podcast. Today I have a California native, I guess you can call her a local, Samantha Tradelius. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for coming on a Saturday afternoon. I know my schedule is messed up. I'm sure yours is too, but thank you for coming on a Saturday.
Hey, I'm in between soccer games, so it's all good. Here I am.
We got a tight 45, guys. Let's go. For people who don't know, Samantha, like what do you do? How are you in the space of entrepreneurship, real estate,
So I've been a commercial insurance agent for the last 25 years. I have spent my entire career in the insurance world, from education, teaching classes for my parents' pre-licensing school and continuing education, and then opened up my own insurance agency at the ripe age of 23. And then kind of segued into more of a commercial space. And so sold that first agency and then joined up with my husband to create Commercial Coverage, which is a commercial insurance brokerage that focuses on investment assets.
Wow, that's awesome. So do you do insurance only in the state of California?
Nope, we're licensed all over the place, but our primary focus, we're up here in the Bay Area. So San Francisco, LA, Sacramento, that's kind of our main gig, but we're all over the states, all over.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so I like to go straight into like the talking points of like what is relevant. We're recording this in September of 2023. We hear a lot of news or, media talking about a lot of insurance companies moving out of California. Can you explain to the listeners, like, what does that mean? Because my buddy owns a house in San Clemente. Shout out to Clayton. But, it's like 18 insurance companies rejected his home. And then they literally said, we're going to wait for the hurricane to pass and then we'll give you insurance. Sounds ridiculous. So like, what is happening?
Well, if you imagine a dumpster on fire, just like floating down the road, that is what the insurance marketplace is right now. It is the hardest it's been in a long time. I mean, I started in the industry in 2003, and that was at the height of a hard market. And now we're back there. So if you're in the business, it's a good time to make money. But if you're on the receiving side, like a person like yourself that's got to pay premiums, it's a hard place to be. The marketplace is tough. Carriers are out of California because they've lost so much money in California. And basically they're at a max capacity, meaning that they are no longer profitable. And the other thing that's a lot of people don't think about, because we're always so like narrowly focused on what's happening in our immediate, 10, 15 miles, things that are happening on the East Coast are affecting our rates on the West Coast and vice versa. So you look at Florida and all the hurricanes and all the nonsense and floods that they have. When those things happen over there, all these insurance companies work together. So it's affecting our rates as well. So a lot of these companies, they're not just not writing in California. They're not writing in Florida. They're not writing in the Gulf states. They're, starting to trickle up East Coast. It's just, it's an interesting place to be. We are seeing some new carriers kind of come into the marketplace. But, more times than not, you're getting those declines because where you're mapped on the fire zones, which have all been redesigned, you're mapped on the flood zones, which have all been redesigned, or the crime scores is the other new one that the insurance companies are throwing at us, which makes it really hard to get insurance.
Okay. So if a lot of our listeners are like, either first time home buyers or younger in the game, now, let's say it's an investment property. Are there certain things as an insurance broker, you've been you said you started at 23, so you've been in the game for at least 2 years. So,
no, 2003.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That's crazy. I've been in the market since I was 23.
Okay. That's cool. That's a long time. I graduated high school in 2003. So, I just aged myself.
I graduated in 99, so we're not too far apart.
Okay. We're close. Okay. So for people looking to buy investment properties, should they avoid certain things? Like, you talked about the maps. Is there a fire map or a website they can go to, or a flood zone? Because I don't buy in flood zones, but are there other things too?
Yes. I mean, CAL FIRE has a great map that they have available if you just go online and look. I mean, the best thing too is you could just go outside and look around. If it looks like it's a brushy area, it's going to be a situation where you're going to have a hard time getting insurance or pay 4 or 5 times what you would normally pay. That is if you can even find a market. Flood zones are also another no-no, just because then you got to buy flood insurance, which can be, as you know, very expensive. but they keep moving the goalposts on us. So areas that were never considered fire areas are now, fire areas. Like the entire city and county of Santa Barbara never used, the hills of Montecito used to be, but now downtown Santa Barbara in some cases is zoned fire, which is like, you're like, what? We're not even by any hills. So, it's ever changing. I would definitely say, looking at the landscape of where you're buying a property is something to definitely take into consideration. The other thing is, like I mentioned, the crime scores. So if you're in an area, like I'm up here in the Bay Area, and certain areas of, San Francisco, Oakland, Alameda area are deemed to be a higher crime score. And then if you're a high crime score, you can't get insurance.
Interesting. Do you think this is because of California restricting how much money their insurance companies can make? Is that part of it?
No, what I think the real issue is that you had so many market disruptors come in and charge such low premiums for insurance for so many years. There was a company called LIG, which was owned by LG Electronics. It was a Korean company that came in like 2010, 2011, and they were like swooping up here in San Francisco and all over California. Charging, 25% of what everyone else was charging. So of course you were buying their product. And what they were doing was lowballing the marketplace. So then all these other carriers kind of came in to try to keep up with, the demand. And then the cats and the fires and the floods and these things start to happen. And these companies were losing so much money that they weren't able to pay the claims. And if they don't have enough money in reserves, or they can't get reinsurance, they can't do business in California. That's the rules. And so that's why we're seeing kind of this mass exodus, because bottom line is there were carriers that weren't charging enough and were disrupting the market. And now here we go. Kind of like the banks, when the banks were really naughty and it caused all the mayhem. Now it's the insurance turn.
Okay. So for someone who's looking to, let's say they bought a house or they're buying a house, what's a good place to go look for insurance? I'll tell you a quick story. When I first started buying houses, it was in Bakersfield and it was in 2018. I didn't know anything about any of the insurance. So what I would do is I would call my Geico agency, and I found out Geico doesn't even actually do home insurance and they just use third party. So I'll sit on the phone like a moron for like 45 minutes to like an hour, talk about, what is the roof? And they'll ask all these stupid questions. It takes forever. And then I found someone like you, my guy's David, and then he's a broker. And then he gives me insurance quotes in like 50 seconds. Like, I'm just like, here's the address, bro. This is the thing. And then he's like, yeah, got it. And then he'll just send it to me in escrow. So like, where do people should they start? Like, should they call their local people they know or go through brokers?
Well, I'm a huge fan of the broker market, obviously, because I am a broker. And for those of us that don't know what that means, it's, there's two different types of insurance agents. There's those that work for a captive company, like a Farmers or a State Farm or like an Allstate, where you only write that product. That's it. That's what you've got. If it doesn't fit, you can't do it. Or you go to someone like myself that we have access to hundreds of markets. So I really will look at, what is the best fit for the client. Obviously price, coverage, and service are what we're looking to attain when, looking at a new risk. So, here's the thing. If it's just a one property, right? It's one thing. You're still okay. So, going online and looking up at a Geico or a Lemonade or any of these, I don't even think Lemonade's still around in California anymore, but there's a lot of different online insurtech markets that are real quick, easy, get her done. Those are fine if you've just got one property. Now, if you have multiple assets and you've got somewhat of a portfolio and you're kind of looking around the corner and have one insurance conversation per year, reaching out to someone like myself definitely makes sense, because then we can find something that makes sense, that kind of covers you on a bigger scale. But if it's just a one-off, like you're buying a condo and you're going to rent it out, online stuff's fine. It's not bad to do. But there is also, people like myself that, that's how we make a living, is you can always call us and we'll find the way. And if we can't do it, we can always steer you in the right direction of, hey, here's where I would go.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of relationships and having someone to call or contact and, having that person. That's always been like, I don't care if the online stuff is like $37.50 cheaper. It's like worthless to me, right? But I like that I have David's cell phone. I can call him and then he'll be like, oh yeah, this happened. I'm going to do this and I'll change it. I'll contact escrow directly. That is like worth like thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, So I think people should always try to develop relationships, especially if they're trying to be serious. And, nobody just buys one house. If you buy one house, you're going to buy another house at some point, right?
And I think too, a lot of people, there's different types of buyers. There's buyers like yourself that really do respect and need and enjoy that relationship. There are other people that just want to get it done. And those people are, and there's a place for everyone out there. I think if you're looking for an educated, involvement and really understanding your products and really buying something, because I'm a huge fan of like, let's buy insurance, but let's also buy something that's going to cover us when we need it. Right. Mm-hmm. Not just to suffice the bank, but also to like cover our, what we're trying to protect. So yeah, I think the personal relationships, everyone says they're kind of a dying breed, but I firmly believe in them. I mean, my clients I've had for 20 years. Yeah, for sure. They call me, I'm their David. They call me all the time.
Yeah. It works out great. Same with the mortgage lending business too, right? You can either have a guy at Chase, maybe he'll give you a good deal. If you have a few $100,000 in the bank, they'll usually lend you for a good deal. But if you not have a broker, he's going to shop around. Maybe he'll talk to UWM, he'll talk to different people, and then you might get the best deal. That's always worked out for me. So I wanted to go back to your story, and you said you started off when you were 23, and how did that is insurance a thing that runs in your family? Like who gets started that early on insurance business?
So it's kind of an interesting story. My family owns this licensing school, and that's kind of what we had. Was they bought the business when I was about 14. And how I actually got into the insurance space was I used to work in the office there, answering the phone and getting all the students into the class. Because in the old days, it wasn't online. People would actually physically come in and sit for their 52 hours, which was 6 days of class, and then go take a state exam. So one day a teacher didn't show up to teach class, and there was like 80 to 100 people sitting in this room. And I was 17 years old at the time, working the front desk, and there was no teacher. And so like any normal person would, I just grabbed a book and walked in and started teaching insurance class, having no idea what I was doing. But none of them knew that. And I had listened enough times from the other room, hearing them, the teachers talk. So I knew I could talk or mimic. And I did for 3 hours until somebody showed up for work. And that was my first taste. So I realized I enjoyed it.
Why did you do that?
Why did I do it?
Yeah.
Because I knew it was what fed my family. I knew all those people were paying customers, and that's what paid our bills. And so I wasn't going to let them down.
Okay. And you were 14?
17.
17. Okay. That's cool.
Yeah. So that's how I started. And I realized I enjoyed teaching. I kind of had a little bit of a talent for it. And so that's what I put myself through college and high school doing, was teaching insurance class and getting people through the state exam, teaching hundreds, thousands of people. It was like when Countrywide and Geico and all these companies were coming in and getting everybody licensed, we were their go-to. And I would travel all over California teaching insurance. So when I graduated college, it became time to get a job, and my parents weren't ready to retire. And so my dad and I started an insurance agency, Strickler Insurance, which is still around today, which is my maiden name. And we sold small, home and auto insurance. That's what I started doing. I would buy leads off the internet, and I would smile and dial, and built a book of business until probably about 4 or 5 years later, I met my husband, and he was, just starting his career in insurance, and we took off running, and commercial coverage was born, and the rest is history.
Wow. That's interesting. Okay. Now tell us the truth, Samantha. Is it easier or harder to sell insurance because you're a girl?
Oh, it was much harder. It's a good question too. It was much harder. Nobody ever took me seriously. I'd walk into meetings and they'd be like, "Oh, is your dad coming? Or is the boss coming?" They thought I was just like the admin chick. And I would, I'd get beat up, man. It was hard. It was really hard until
you were a teenager though, right?
No, I was by that time, but I'd opened up my agency. I was 23. Okay. So I was, nice. A young woman. And definitely a male dominated industry. So it wasn't easy by any means. But now, 20 years later, it's a whole different approach, right? I don't get so I don't have that much, there's not a lot of conflict with it. I kind of know my stuff at this point.
Yeah. So, a follow-up question to that, because I talk to a lot of women in the real estate space, and they always have their own, Invest Her or women empowerment stuff, because they are minorities in real estate as well. There's very, very little people, women. So how did you turn that around? Because it's easy to say, hey, you know what? I came here. This is like a big bros club. You know what? I'm checking out. I'm going to go back to school and do MBA or something. How did you stay in the game?
So I started to really gravitate towards women-owned businesses when it came to insurance.
Okay.
And being a woman, women want to do business with women. And I was genuinely interested in what they were doing, and as they were interested in what I was doing. And I would put myself at the seat I'd sit myself at the table with, these business women. And that's really how I grew my business and started to become a professional and a successful one at that. And not that men wouldn't, deal with me or talk to me, but it was always such a different conversation when I was working with women-owned businesses. And so that's, a lot of my book of business historically has always been female-owned businesses.
So you definitely recommend, sounds like, a support system, and even if it's women-based or not, but having those kind of group of people doing those business, talking to them, going to those kind of meetups, does that help you grow your network and stuff?
I mean, I think when you're starting off your career, you need to put yourself in environments around the type of people that you want to be around, for sure.
Yeah.
And I firmly believe that I'm only the woman I am today, based off of the wonderful women in my life that were, friends, colleagues, clients, et cetera, that helped, we helped lift each other up and grow up together. And it wasn't easy for any of us. Business isn't easy for anybody, male or female. It's like being put yourself in a garbage disposal and turn it on, because that's what it feels like sometimes. It's hard. Yeah. But I think, being a woman in an industry that wasn't necessarily super, there wasn't a lot of, when I was starting, there wasn't a lot of tools and stuff out there for women in insurance. I mean, it was, you kind of had to get out there, and I would go to like networking meetings and do breakfasts once a week, or, I'd go all over and I would do all kinds of things till I found really what fit and what, worked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I find it very fascinating because it doesn't matter what it is. Everybody always has something, right? Because I could say I have an accent. I'm from India. I'm an immigrant, all those things. And, I'm not short, but I could be like, oh, I'm short. I'm bald or something. There's always something for everyone. And it's so fascinating for me is when I talk to people who made it or who are entrepreneurs, doesn't matter what it is, they still go through with it. And then they stay in the game, right? That's what I tell people, even if you're a victim, even if you got punched in the face by, whoever, believing that you're the person who gets punched in the face, that is going to not help you go forward in life, right? So it's not blaming the victim. It's just taking on a different identity and then keep going forward. Do you, what do you have any response to that, or what do you think?
I mean, you have to fall down. You have to get uncomfortable. You have to struggle, because that's what makes you who you are. I think there's, you look at people and they'll be like, oh, well, it's so easy, or, oh, they, have got this great thing, but make no bones about it. Like, they had to go down their roadblocks and get, move the boulders. We all do. That is part of success. It is not easy. And it is easy to quit. That's super. I mean, it's easy to walk away and say, you know what, I'm not going to do this anymore. It's hard to stay in the game. And those of us that can stay in the game are the ones that, get where they want to be at the end of the day. But it's hard. It really is hard. And then you throw a couple kids into it, and, you got life and all these other things going on. I mean, life is tough, and business ownership is tough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I had this girl, Ashley, on my podcast, Ashley Wilson. She's very popular in the multifamily real estate space. And, she was saying that, it's for her, different people, different things. But for her, she was saying it is so annoying for her to hear, oh, how do you balance work in, home or something like that? And then she was like, oh, that's so annoying, because that's what they never ask guys that. So instead, like, from a guy's point of view, I don't really care what your work like, because I'm trying to figure out what your entrepreneurship is. But I thought it wouldn't be offending. Is it offending to ask women that?
It's not offending. It's more of like
annoying.
The word balance, I think, is stupid and ridiculous and not attainable. And I'm a Libra, so I love balance. But
hey, we're both
in
Libras.
life, I think you really need to think about it as buckets of time and how you want to spend your buckets of time. So some buckets, some days are Samantha work days. Other days are my sparkle days where I'm doing my nonprofit stuff. And then there's my family bucket, And so some days, some are going to be filled higher than others. Some days, one's going to get nothing and the other one's going to get everything. And it's just kind of, you do what you can do. And, you realize that you're the decider of how you want to spend your time. So if you're sitting here and saying, oh, I'm not, I'm failing over here, or I'm excelling over here, and then this is, there's all these different constraints, I think, on us as human beings, male or female. And I think at the end of the day, it's just like, fill your time in the way that suits you best, and that you can feel good when you lay down at night and go, okay, yeah, like tomorrow I'm going to spend a little bit more time doing X because I spent a little bit of extra time doing Y today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you think that for I know I didn't expect the conversation to go this route all the time, but it's fun. So we'll chat a little bit more. Do you think for modern women it's kind of like too much pressure, like because you guys have to excel in career, in the top grades, and also have 5 kids by the time you're 35? Like, is that a thing, or you think not really? You could do whatever you want, it's fine. That's not like a pressure on you.
I think it's a lot of pressure, but I also think it's a lot of pressure on all of us. Women definitely take the brunt because we're the child. We have the children, and then typically the child carrying abilities go to mom. But I also think it's that, we are furthering this narrative by continuing this rat race. So if we as women say, you know what, like, I'm not going to do this because I've got to do this, and husband, you're going to need to do this, and you work on it more of a collaborative event, then everybody's not all pissed off at each other and resentful of each other. And, I've been in that situation to where I'm doing everything and I'm looking at my husband. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? And it's, and then we have to have those types of conversations. And so it took us in our house a really long time to find some balance. And sometimes it's weighted more on me, and then I get overwhelmed and I'm like, hold on a second, like, you're it. Your turn. So I think, yes, to answer your question, there is a lot of pressure and stress on women, but also women can be the deciders of, again, how they want to spend that time. So if you want to be all stressed out and not change your life or do anything about it, a little bit of that's on you to be the chooser of how you want to do this thing called life.
Yeah, I always tell, whether be the girl or guy, if you're young and stuff, you want to be educated. And you want to have options, like you don't want to just rely on your first boyfriend or girlfriend and be like, oh, I'm just not going to do this and rely on them. And then, I don't know, you're just giving too much power, I feel like. So, I'm very close with my sister, and, she's got 2 girls, and so we always talk all the time. So, she's just graduating. She's 17 next year, and then she's going to college. So I always told her, like, you don't want to do like a 20-year career in like doctor, but, you don't want to not do anything. You want to go to, you want to be educated, you want to be smart, you want to meet people, network. And, so for like young people who are coming into the space, graduating school, college, what do you recommend for guys and girls? Or the recommendation is different?
What's funny is I was always in such a hurry to grow up as a young kid. So I stayed in LA. I went to college at CISA, and I never went off to college, which I always wished I did, but I didn't. I bought my first place when I was 18. I bought a condo because, my dad's like, why are you going to pay rent? Go buy a condo. And at the time I had like $800 in the bank, and Bank of America gave me a loan. It was, my mortgage was $700. I remember it. But, I was always in such a hurry to grow up. And so I felt that, like, when I grew up, I looked back on those years and I go, gosh, I really wished I would have had more fun or done these things when I was younger, because then I had my first daughter when I was 30. And I felt like by the time I was 30, I had had a lot of fun. I had a great career going for me. And I also was like ready to like take the next step of life, where I feel like so many of us, everything is such a timeline for women, or, people like, oh, you're supposed to do this and you're supposed to do that. And then have your career. And then the other thing with women is like, you get married, you start your career, you get married, and then you have to kind of take a pause a lot of times because then you have kids, and then you have to go back into the workplace 5-6 years later. And then that's a whole nother situation. So I guess my advice to the young folk that are coming out of school is, have fun, try different things, try different jobs, meet new people, travel, experience life, because that's what it's about. And then you have your whole life to work and be focused and, have the nose to the grind. But take those, first 5-6 years before it's time to really, make money, get your career going, but have fun doing it.
Yeah, that's a really good advice. Especially in your 20s, as long as you have some education, have a job. I never tell people, go on debt and go travel the world. I don't like that.
No, I don't either. I didn't do it. I didn't get to go. I didn't go to Europe first time. So I was like in my late 30s. I mean, I'm a fan of being practical, being smart, paying your bills, being responsible, but have a good time doing it. And don't feel like you need to be this, have it all figured out person, because here's a little tidbit. I'm 42 and I still don't have it all figured out. We're all still works in progress.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah, thanks for that conversation. That was insightful. I hope, listeners, get a lot of value from that and, make some decisions. I like it to be very practical and, for just not some kind of philosophical, but also, mindset and practicality, like these things are, like my niece can use this, she's looking at colleges, maybe she can go to Europe and do a semester. I don't know. That's
yeah. Fun. I mean, this is the time to have fun. I just actually lost a dear friend of mine last week, who was my best friend in college. Horrible, cancer battle, awful. Yeah, and it was like, thank you. But it's like when you look at life and you're 42 years old and you're like, wow, someone just lost their life, and that's it. Like life is so short. And we don't think about it like that because we're all in the race, right? We're all doing the things we're trying to acquire and do. And when you look back, like, are you enjoying your life? Are you having fun? Are you traveling? Are you hanging out with your friends? Are you, having roommates and doing all of those things that we all do? And we all are like, when we look back at those memories, we're so glad we did it. So, I mean, my advice to young people or just people anywhere is like, do the things that you want to do that bring you joy. I mean, don't go into debt doing it. Yeah. Don't, be inappropriate or make, bad mistakes in that way. But I mean, genuinely, like, enjoy life because it's very short. Yeah, that's true. Now, moving the conversation forward a little bit towards, freedom, time, working for money, and all those things. Like, so where do you stand in terms of, always working to make money? If you don't work, you don't have money. So then do you have some ideas or do you do something personally or investing wise so that there's some passive income coming? You have the company and you have the insurance stuff. So what do you say to those?
Have you thought about investing in real estate and taking advantage of all of those benefits without any of the work? That is something that OnV Invest not only provides, but has been providing since its inception. With friends and family, we have built an empire in a system of a wealth generating tool that is giving us and our friends and family that leverage in their life to create true wealth. Go to onvinvest.com for more to see if you qualify. And thanks for listening.
So the beautiful thing about insurance when I started in my career was I learned very early on that it was the gift that kept giving. Mm-hmm. So I knew that I could work my ass off up front, right? Uh-huh. And then every single year, the clients continue to renew as long as, 80% of your book will stay. So when I was, trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my career, I liked that model because it was the gift that kept giving. So I knew I just had to get the 80% to renew their insurance. And beginning of every year, I didn't have to start fresh every single year, it's one of those unique careers that you can do that in. So, year to year, like building the growth that way was incredible. So 20 years later, as you can imagine, like, it was a good thing. Buying properties and being an investment, a landlord has, been also something my husband and I have really focused on. And so our goal every year was to buy a piece of property, and we've done it every year. And so we've got a nice little portfolio there with some income that will hopefully, when the girls get old enough, they won't have to worry about too much. And then I also do a lot of like other little things, that kind of just generate income in different ways. But I do think that multiple avenues of revenue is totally important.
Yeah, that's very important. I didn't actually know that you had a portfolio. So how did you guys get into owning real estate and where did you guys end up buying?
So my first one I bought when I was 18, like I said.
Nice, yeah. Oh, you still kept it?
Well, no, it was funny. So it was in Encino, California, in the Valley. I bought it and then ended up selling it a couple years later. And it was like right when the market, I think we bought it for $88,000 was what it cost. And then when I sold it, it was like, I think almost like $175,000. I mean, and that was, I was like 22, 23 years old with some real money. So I bought another one. And I've had that, up until probably about 5 years ago. I kept it, rented it out. And then it was in LA and I was up here and it was just kind of a pain in the ass dealing with it. So that was the first two. And then we have, 4 properties here up in the Marin County area. And then 3 here now. And then we have one on the East Coast in Florida.
And they're single family homes?
Mm-hmm.
And then you just rent them out to long-term tenants?
Yes, two of them I do. One of them I live in, and the other one is a part-time part-time vacation rental house.
Oh, that's awesome. And then how did you guys, did you just have money saved up and you just buy one every couple of years or something?
Yeah. So we would just stash cash, and that's what we would do. Instead of, doing crazy stuff, we would buy houses. That was like what we wanted to do every year, was buy a house. And always finding a property that, was in an area that would be obviously a good rental for families, we're looking for a longer term situation, good schools, safe environment for children. And then, I always was a fan of having enough money down on the house that if you were running into a situation to where, you didn't have a tenant in there and you had to pay, our mortgage plus another mortgage. I always wanted it to be like not an amount of money that was going to crush you. So, we always kind of had put enough money down on every house to where if there wasn't a tenant in there, it wouldn't put us under to have to carry the house for a couple months if we had to. That was always our philosophy. And so it's been great. We've got a great property manager that helps us out. And yeah.
Follow up on that, a lot of people would have missed this is, doing an insurance-based business or having a regular business where, you have to work and make money, have clients. That's totally different than going from that mindset to actually buying property and doing the passive income and, they print more money, inflation, property value goes up, dollar value goes down, then you can cash out, tax benefits. That's like a totally different game. How did you jump onto that train? Is that a book you read? You talked to your dad's friends, uncle's dog's buddy, or like how did that come about?
Well, our business is investment property insurance. That's what we do. So all of our clients are people that are doing exactly what we're talking about. And so it's what, my husband's always known. It's what I've always known. And, as we started to get into a situation where we were acquiring, real money that we could make moves with. Obviously that's kind of, you look at people that have wealth, and real estate is where that comes from. And so that was always, I've never been really someone who's been super excited about the stock market. To me, that's like super, I don't know enough about it to where I really feel comfortable. It's not my space, but real estate, I feel comfortable with. I'm willing to bet that way. And that's just kind of the way that I like to think about building my future.
Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, stock market and stuff is just a joke. I have some stocks that's probably worth less than $50,000, but I hold millions of dollars in real estate because of leverage, right? It's not that because I have millions of dollars in cash to buy it, but it's just I can leverage 5 to 1 or 4 to 1, and then I can keep buying more. I can raise capital and buy. It's so interesting. Okay, and that's very cool. That's very fun. I had one question about the insurance that I don't want to forget is, a lot of people talk about umbrella insurance policy. And, I have a couple dozen homes with a dozen properties. And I don't have an umbrella insurance, but however, I do have obviously insurance on every single property. And my LLC is insured through the thing. So is that something that you do recommend having? So that, because, we're always under an active lawsuit. Somebody's suing us because, they found us out, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. No. Umbrellas are the easiest thing to buy, and everyone should have one, in my opinion. Here's what the umbrella does for those of us that don't know. So an umbrella insurance has nothing to do with the property part. So fire insurance, property, flood insurance, property. If there's a liability claim, like you've got a slip, trip, and fall, or you got a psycho tenant, or, just go down the laundry list of things that we see from a liability perspective. That's what the umbrella policy does. Now, when you have someone like yourself that has a bunch of different entities, you can list all those entities under one umbrella policy. Typically, we like to look at what's your net worth? And then we kind of go backwards to say, okay, if someone were going to come try to get you, even if you've got all these wonderful legal strategies, this is just another veil to kind of put over that's going to, be able to add that extra layer of protection. In my opinion, if you even only have one house that you live in, or even if you're renting and you have, a car, the umbrella goes over both the renter's and policy and the car insurance. And it's basically an extension of liability for you. So if somebody like yourself that's got multiple assets, a $10 million umbrella would be like a starting point that I would recommend for someone like yourself. And it's not crazy expensive. Like we think of it as expensive, but when you look at it in the long term and when that, needs to be pierced, you'll be very happy that you have it.
What would be a rough estimate of $1 million of umbrella policy cost per year?
For $1 million over commercial assets, you're probably talking about $2,500
for the whole year.
Yeah. Typically, when you start to go from like 1 million to 5 million coverage wise, it's like anywhere from like 1,000 to 1,500 per million when you start to kind of combine them and go that way. On a personal umbrella side, and that's usually 4 units and less, you're usually looking at $250 to $300 per million. And that would go over not only your homes, your rental properties that are 4 units and less, and then also your auto exposure and any like watercraft, golf cart, that kind of stuff.
What? It's only $250 per million?
It's so cheap. It's such a no-brainer.
Gosh, I'm a moron not to have, because all my properties are
What's David doing? He needs to be selling you an umbrella policy.
I know. So the issue with me is, I have partners. So my sister's on some, I'm on some, my LLC's on some, my buddy Drew's on. So how do I need to get a single different policies for every person?
Well, it depends. I'm assuming most of the properties or all of them are owned in an LLC, right?
So my portion is always owned in an LLC, but sometimes my sister will just own it in her name.
Yeah. Well, what you can do is you can list out multiple names. If it's multiple different partners that own one set of properties, you can do one. If there's multiple different ownerships with multiple different properties, then yeah, you would probably want to do some type of different policy for each one. Or I have a client that's got kind of a similar situation and there's multiple different partners for multiple different properties, but he's got exposure in every single one of these. I just have a policy for him with his entities listed so that his portion is covered. And that has worked and been fine. So there's a lot of different ways you can get creative with it. But yeah, you definitely need one.
Okay. That is good. Cool. Well, yeah, that was all I wanted to know about the insurance stuff. So what's next for you, Samantha? Like, are you trying to expand more? Actually, before that, sorry, I had a quick question on how did you build out your team running this business? I'm guessing it's not just you doing all of this work.
For the insurance side?
Yeah. Is it just you?
Oh, no. It's not me at all. We have, I think like 13, 14 people. And it's, having employees as a business owner, I will say this, I don't care what industry you're in, it is the hardest part of the game. Finding good people, finding people that, subscribe to the same philosophies that you do and them, that is very hard. And insurance has a lot of turnover. And the financial industry, I think, just has a lot of turnover in general. And then you're up here in the Bay Area, which is also its own, situation. It has been years of a lot of soul searching and, a lot of different understandings of how people tick and how people work to really have created the team that we have today, which is phenomenal. We've got a really good group. But it's been hard. I mean, it's absolutely been hard. And I don't know if there's this is what you do, because there is no how-to manual when it comes to, hiring and running an agency. It's just, when you have the right people, you have the right people, and then you can kind of take off and run. But it's hard.
Okay. So do you ever give people equity, or you just have just straight employees?
It's always been just a straight employee model.
Okay. That makes sense. Yeah, that'll be we have that issue too. It's just me and Drew who run this company, and we don't have any other people who own the business. So every other person who works on the business, they don't care at all. They just like, yeah, whatever, bro. I hope your house is on fire. I got paid. I'm out. They don't care.
It's the hardest part about being the boss is, you want to be good. And, it's like, you're never going to make everybody happy. And it's really hard to find people that, I don't want to say it's like a woe is me thing, but I do feel like that the challenges of business ownership and having employees is it does a doozy on you as an individual. I mean, it's hard. It's very hard. And it's hard when, you get somebody that takes advantage of you, or it's hard when, somebody wants to move on and it's not like it's a breakup, but you're like devastated because, they want to do something else. And you're just like, but I thought we had a different, there's so many different emotions and things that go into it. But my mom always told me, like, the best advice she ever gave me was that, because we came from family business, was that your employees they're not your friends. And you have to remember that, and there has to be that line that gets drawn, and you respect them and they respect you. And that is how you have a fully functionally, positive work environment.
Yeah, that's a interesting point. Employees are not your friends. A lot of people actually do tell me, you take it one step further, do not partner with like friends or family. But my whole business model is based on partnering with only very close friends and family, because it's like, if your sister and mom don't want to give you money, and I'm thinking you probably have a shitty business. Like,
Right.
that doesn't make any sense,
I mean, I've only been in my family business. I mean, when I still work with my family, like, I've only ever known family business, and then my husband and I. So like, I subscribe to what you're saying 100%, because I kind of feel that the people that are my family are the people that aren't going to screw me. The people that are my family are the people that are going to protect me, and I'm going to protect them. I've done business with, I've had people that I've hired that are friends to do business with, that I won't do again. Because that, tends to sometimes sever a relationship, because like, let's say you hire someone to do web design and they just blow it.
Yeah. Sure. That makes sense.
And then you have that, like, that type of thing I tend to not do with. Now, a lot of times vendors or people that I do work with become friends, which is different than us having a relationship prior to us, going into business together.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah, that's a good point. I like, we'll end on this. We'll talk about this for real quick. I know you have to go for the game.
No, I'm good.
Okay. I like to buy things together with people I care about, because I like community, and I'm all about Americans, especially middle class, upper middle class, lower middle class Americans buying stuff, having ownership, than being those morons who sit on TV and say, own nothing, be happy. And I always tell my friends too, I'm like, the guys who are saying own nothing, be happy, own everything. Like, are you stupid?
They own everything.
Like, and then, like, people always get mad. They're like, hey man, you're just buying homes, so poor people can't own anything. And I'm like, what are you talking about? The guy who works with us, who makes the least, owns that house with me. You are renting from Blackstone. You are the problem. Like, you're not even trying to be part of the community. So what do you tell to these guys? Because, I'm sure I was that way when I was younger. I always thought, people who own houses are evil or something. As I got older, I'm like, no, dude, I want to buy stuff with people I love. And then, my sister owns my trust, right? Like, I don't have kids or, wife or anything. And, it's all going back to the family, it's going to the kids, because I'm trying to create something. I like to solve like sex trafficking, especially little girls and stuff getting kidnapped and stuff. So I like to donate to that. I want to do things like that, because then you can think about stuff that's things that are not just about you, it's just being selfish, just thinking about you. I tell people this is going to be very controversial. I say poor people are the most selfish people, because they don't have time to think about other people. I'm not saying it's their fault, but that's all they have time to feed them, right? But I can be very benevolent. I can feed like 1,000 people if I want to in India, right? Because I $100 is nothing, like it's useless. But I can do that, then I can help more people, right? So what do you say to people who are like on the fence? They're like, oh, I don't want to screw people over. I don't want to own anything, and I want to be happy. And I'm like, somebody's owning all of that things, bro. Like, that's not how life works.
Well, I think, being in the space that I work with property owners, and I am one myself, but I work a lot with people that own lots of properties and rent a lot of units to people. There are two different types of landlords. There really are, just as there are two different types of people. There are good people and there are people.
Sure.
And, when you have a person, when I see a claim come across that's got, multiple infractions because this landlord had uninhabitable, living conditions and wasn't fixing this, and oh my God, And I can look at that and go, okay, like, this person, I could see where this person's not taking care of just the fundamental basic stuff that, if you own a property, you gotta keep it up, right? But then there's other people that I have clients that are amazing and go above and beyond and do, things and they don't have those types of problems. So I think that the people that have the problems are kind of the people that maybe have the problems with every part of their life. And so they kind of have that bad juju, if you will. And then they also, when they see people that have what they don't have, it's easy to throw rocks at people, but it's hard to do the work to get to be the person you want to be. So you know, there's always going to be somebody that's going to say something nasty. I mean, that's just part of the program. So at least you're talking about me. That's what you should be thinking, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, as a landlord, there's so many things that you could fix and not cause a problem, and just digging your heels in and being difficult sometimes doesn't suit on the longer term, because as you know, the courts don't necessarily always side with the landlords a lot of times. And the stuff that I see come across my desk for claims is so stupid. Like, you could have just fixed it and been done with it. But then on the other side, there's psycho tenants. People are nuts. I mean, I have seen some of the most bizarre, crazy situations. Like it still stumps me with what people will sue people for. And it's like, what? Huh? And that's why insurance rates are what they are when it comes to landlord coverage, especially here in the Bay Area. I mean, forget it. It's as hard to get as property insurance down in San Clemente. It's incredible.
Yeah. For me, it's really sad to see, because I come from India, and, my family's from there, but, my family lives in Georgia now, South. But it's so interesting because, when we come here to this country, we want to work, we want to be employable, and we want to contribute, right? But when I come here and spend time, and especially I started buying properties in not the greatest neighborhoods, I see that, people don't want to work. They just want to find a loophole to sue people, and not, it's just so crazy that, it's I'm like, why do you have citizenship? I'm like, I should have more than you. You're not even contributing to the economy. You're just kind of complaining and stuff. Do you see that?
It's bad news. I mean, the pandemic was the worst because you had up here in the Bay Area, they were not allowed to evict people. So people that could afford to not pay rent, they could pay rent. They were just like, screw it, I'm not going to pay rent. Yeah. And then as landlords, I mean, you still have to pay your mortgage. So, a lot of times what you're charging for rent doesn't mean that you're pocketing all that cash. It means that you're paying the mortgage.
Yeah.
And so then you see claims where people are saying that there was uninhabitable living conditions. And it was no, you weren't paying rent. You weren't doing any of the things that we had agreed upon in our agreement. And so you saw this crazy flux of claims come through, and these poor landlords, I mean, their insurance was defending them, but then now that claim and, the payout for the legal was, hundreds of thousands. And now that's going to follow them around for the next 5 years. And it was just people being horrible people.
Yeah. I learned a good lesson. I can't really talk about the active lawsuits and stuff, but it's just, the tenants just saying oh, I did this. And then I'm like, I can't do this. This is an act of nature. I can't plan a lightning to hit the tree and hit, what? Are you stupid? That this doesn't make any sense. They're like, oh no, they did this on purpose, but my lawyer's laughing at it, but still, it's just annoying, and it goes on. But, I find that, being able to protect people, having these laws, turns them into more relying on the system, becoming very sue happy, everybody, they want to sue and then not work. And it's just crazy, to me that, some of the ideals we talk about is so crazy. Do you see a solution to this? Do you think people will change, or what do you, education?
Well, I think at some point the insurance companies are going to stop paying. And then there's not going to be money left. And so when there's no more money, these lawyers are going to have nothing to come after. And so at some point, the narrative will shift, but it's going to really be based on, when the money dries up, because that's all they're going after. I go back to those basic things that you can do, even if someone is just being crazy pain in the ass. If they want, the trees cut down, and you're like, well, I don't really know that it's time to do it. And if it's, a $500, $1,000, even $5,000 situation, that maintenance or whatever, just do it. I think as a landlord, just do it. Be done with it. Not, don't cause the problems, if it's within reason, because, there's no sense in aggravating poking the bear, so to speak. If someone is a little crazy, and you never know they're crazy until they're in there. That's the other thing. Crazy doesn't show up. Crazy doesn't present itself on the application. Crazy only comes out a couple months later. And that I think is just an easy way to just diffuse the situations. I mean, a lot of my clients, they'll call me and say, hey, this person is doing this. What do you think? Just if you can afford to do it, just pay it, make it go away. And like, let's move on to the next problem is kind of my recommendation. Instead of digging your heels in because someone's pissing you off and being an idiot, because there's idiots everywhere. There's certain fights that are worth fighting, and there's others that are just not. Because believe me, like there's a silly attorney out there that will write you a letter and start to cause you problems. I mean, I had one the other day that was a client of mine, and it's a property in the city in San Francisco. And this attorney wrote on this document saying there was and I quote, this is what the letter said, there was a colored man. Okay. It was on the document. I'm like, first of all, what century are we living in? And they said it was somebody, a colored man across the street with a supposed dog that then turned around and they said bit one of the tenants or somebody. It wasn't even our clients. Like it was just in the public. Like it had nothing to do with my landlord. It had nothing to do with anything. And I was more taken back, like, who's this colored man? Like, what? I think we should send him a letter for discrimination. Like this crazy ass. But I mean, that's what it is. It's people are crazy.
Yeah. I have some crazy attorneys too. Sending, I'm like, first of all,
I'm like, you're an attorney. You should know better.
Yeah.
Talk like that. Oh.
Yeah. Well, he's probably going to lose.
Oh, he's totally going to lose. I told my client, I was like, just rip it up, dude. It has nothing to do with you. Like, this is great. This is a great letter for the day.
Yeah. It's a bogus claim. Yeah. I will end with this. You can probably share your thoughts on this is, what I've noticed, Samantha, is like over the years, I try to like change things and be like, oh, you know what, I'll change this neighborhood and this house. And it's just like, it's not worth my time. Like, it's like talking to people who don't want to listen to. Actually, that's why I started this podcast was I'll be so enthusiastic about the things we do and I'll share, and people didn't care. So now I said, you know what, this is not a good use of my time. Now you have to beg me to talk to you about certain things, or I will say, just go listen to the podcast, because I don't have time to convince you that real estate is good. I don't care. Like, I'm already rich. Like, I don't need you to give me the okay that real estate, I don't care at all. Right. So same with these tenants and stuff. What I noticed was trying to buy in like bad neighborhoods, trying to change the neighborhood. I tried to do it really, like, it's a total waste of time, even people. So I just moved on to like B areas, A areas, and then just dealing with different kinds of, people with different socioeconomic status, because it's not that poor people are bad. I've had a lot of great tenants who actually pay on time. It's just certain neighborhoods, certain areas attract certain kinds of people. And, like when you like, I can clearly tell when Bakersfield, certain zip codes, they won't pay rent, but they bought 2 new cars during the pandemic, right? I'm like, I can see you have 7 TVs.
But I think too, just from a claims perspective, I see the claims and the psycho people in the most highest end zip codes as well. I mean,
they're hiding there
I
too,
think crazy doesn't discriminate on address. It's just like it's everywhere.
Crazy's everywhere. Yeah.
Crazy is crazy. And I think the bigger issue is not so much the socioeconomical parts of town or areas, is more of just the litigious nature of the state and like where we're at as a society, especially in California, especially in the Bay Area, to where it is okay to not pay rent and then come around and sue your landlord. Like that has become an okay practice. And that I think is a bigger issue, where 10, 15 years ago, you wouldn't even imagine doing something like that. But now that's just kind of the way, like it's acceptable. And I think that's the bigger issue. And that needs to change. And like I said, I think the market will level itself out because there just won't be insurance anymore. There won't be any more money to grab. Yeah. And then they're going to have to go find something else.
That is actually a great point, actually, because that's my latest conclusion. What you just said is I've moved from Bakersfield to Inland Empire to Orange County. But I am still in the blue state, right? So finally, we decided to go to Tennessee, red state, 2 weeks or get the hell out, sheriff's on your door. So now what happens is you're training people to they're like kids, like, hey, you don't pay rent, you're going to get evicted. That means maybe I should have a job and not beat my wife. Like, just do like normal human being things, have a job, pay for things. Why do you want me to pay for your water bill? Doesn't make sense. But, when you train people like that, like in the blue state, like you're saying, or New York, New Jersey, it's just hard for people are just going to abuse it, right? That's what it is.
Well, I also think too, like a lot of people have fallen on hard times too. And like, sometimes it is hard to pay rent and sometimes it is hard to, make ends meet. And so as a landlord too, like it's okay to work with your tenants and be accommodating and understanding. And, being an asshole is easy, right?
Yeah.
Taking compassion and I'm not saying, give handouts and do these things because at the end of the day, like, we all have to pay bills and make a living, but, sometimes, people deserve a little compassion and it's okay to work with people. Not everybody sucks. A lot of people do suck, but not everybody sucks.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's true. One of my tenants didn't pay for a year, and then the state decided that the tenant, the check they give from the state to the landlord was better to just give it to the tenant who didn't pay. So they gave my tenant $20,000 to not pay me rent for 2 years. Like, were really smart. So that tenant was trying to. There was another tenant who was like trying to buy a house, who's trying to pay me back. I said, "Nah, I'm going to make you wait 2 months because now she can't buy a home." So she's like, "Oh, please, I'm going to take it and obviously, let her buy her home." But I'm like, "This is a teaching lesson for you. This is what happens because they have that ding. They will never be able to buy a house if you don't pay her because nobody's going to lend you."
That's the other thing too. It follows them around. So, I mean, I don't know. I think like everyone just needs to be nice and be kind and go back to like the way that we were all raised to be a kind person, do good, help your community, wake up, work hard, be nice. It's not that complicated.
I know. I like that. Nice values. Hey, Samantha, go have fun with your kids. Is it a football game?
Soccer. I got two. I got one doing soccer, one doing dance. So I had soccer this morning, soccer this afternoon, and then soccer tomorrow. Soccer mom.
Yeah. You have the big SUV too?
Oh yeah. I got the mom ride. I'm ready. I got the chair. I got the hat. I'm ready. I yell. I jump up and down when we score goals. I do the whole bit.
You got snacks?
My youngest is 10. So we're kind of out of the snack zone, which is great. Now we're more into like, they like their drinks. And so I'll probably get them Starbucks on the way home.
Oh, wow. What a treat for them. That's cool. Hey, thank you for coming on the show. And if you're in Orange County, hit me up and, we'll hang out, do some fun stuff. I
love it. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And for the listeners, how can they get a hold of you if they're looking to get insurance and stuff?
You can go to my website, SamanthaTradelius.com, where you can kind of find all the things out. I have a little bit on the nonprofit stuff, which we didn't talk about. You can find out about that. You can find out about my risk management career. My podcast, I got all kinds of stuff there. So SamanthaTradelius.com.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
I don't know about you, but I definitely like to see 5-star reviews on any service or any product before I purchase. Please take a second to leave us a 5-star review, whether you're listening to it on Apple, iTunes, or Spotify, or whatever platform. Take a second, goes a long way, helps us a lot to grow the channel, and thanks for listening.